if you're in tech, should you be worried? Should you be concerned? And I think there's some of that, but one of the points that I made was like, hey, these are still the leading and most innovative companies in the world, and they're going to be figuring things out. And this is where all the talent and a lot of the value is accruing. And you're kind of seeing that show up, in the numbers. And I mean, the biggest takeaway for me is just around the ad side. I was so negative on ads. If we kind of go back a few.
3, 2, 1, go!
All right, we're back. Rush Hour Podcast, episode 41. Holy
I think,
cow.
yeah, 41, 42.
41. I'm TW, this is Justin. We're two tech guys that are non-technical, giving you the latest tech news. And this week, big week, earnings calls for the monsters, the big tech firms. I thought we'd jump into that and talk a little bit about that and some other sort of tech tools and AI that we're using. So let's jump right into it. How did the earnings calls go in your opinion, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, it really couldn't have gone better for tech this week. Blowout earnings from all the companies you mentioned. I think reporting this week: Microsoft, Amazon, Reddit, and Meta. And why don't we just start getting into some of the numbers? And then I thought it'd be interesting to think about what does this mean for the industry overall, and then like how can you be navigating right now? What's a three-headed beast? So they got e-commerce, they got logistics, they got cloud infra, and they're becoming a sleeper ad titan as well, really starting to compete with Google and Meta as well. And so it kind of signals that they're not going away. So what are the takeaways from all of this? And then let's maybe dive into some of the stuff that's more interesting. AI, that's the unifying theme. But profitability and ads are still king in this cycle. That's the clear focus is that the AI piece and ad profitability among all these players is crushing right now. The second thing, and a lot of people have said, consumer tech is dead. Consumer tech is not dead, baby. It's still here. These companies are printing money. They figured out how to navigate in this period of time, and it's just evolving. And then the other thing, and I think this is kind of like a macro play right now within the space, which is that being a platform, infra, social ads is more durable than just being a sole product. So I think it's the combination between all those things that's firing at all cylinders. But a lot there. Hopefully kind of interesting for folks listening the first time in terms of a snapshot of what happened this week. But what is your take on the space and kind of what this means?
Yeah, I think there's been so much talk of tariffs. I mean, our last couple of podcasts were about the impact of tariffs and how it's going to be this incredibly dampening. But you look at these big tech companies, these guys are essentially tariff proof in terms of some of their revenue streams. They're so well diversified in tech. You got AI, you've got digital, ads, we've got a lot of room to grow the pie here with the Visa isn't seeing any signs of less spending. So it seems like most people aren't really too scared at the moment of tariffs and impending doom and all the things that you hear. So maybe these are good signs. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things we talked about in the last episode was like, if you're in tech, should you be worried? Should you be concerned? And I think there's some of that, but one of the points that I made was like, hey, these are still the leading and most innovative companies in the world, and they're going to be figuring things out. And this is where all the talent and a lot of the value is accruing. And you're kind of seeing that show up, in the numbers. And I mean, the biggest takeaway for me is just around the ad side. I was so negative on ads. If we kind of go back a few years, I was running the performance marketing team at Twitch, and it's really expensive to acquire users, and became even more so with the loss of IDFA and some other signals that you had before that you no longer have. And I was like, in terms of performance marketing, in terms of like being able to do direct response and really being able to do targeted ads, maybe that time is kind of over. But these companies have figured out ways to still, monetize. And I think it's also probably relative to the data and these new AI tools, et cetera, that they have versus other maybe smaller competitors in the space. If you're a media buyer or you're a brand and you're advertising in some places, there's still no better place to put your money than, Meta, Google, and maybe now Amazon as well. And I think Reddit is becoming an emerging player. This is just kind of like a testament to those companies' ability to navigate that time and then accelerate, which is incredible.
And we talked about the impact of sort of AI on all these jobs. What do you think the impact is on, jobs with this earnings report? Are we going to be more bullish, bear? Or like, what are your thoughts? Are people that are thinking about this? This is a tough one, right? Because there's a little bit of cautious optimism here, I'd say. But
Yeah.
where do you think people are going to land?
I think it's the exact right question because while it's really good for the companies and industry and kind of Silicon Valley generally that these are still the Goliaths in the US, they were able to make a lot of these results within the context of a backdrop of mass firings and AI efficiency. And hey, listen, I think Google recently talked about if we're going to have performance bonuses for people who are like super performers, and low performers are going to get even less money. So these results are coming within the context of a more efficient, era and period. And so your shareholders, that's great for you. If you're some employees working at these companies, I still think it's a bit of scary hours. That being said, the tools that exist, the platforms that are still really good at like targeting folks, people are getting, direct response. Apple's recent news, for example, of like they're no longer, we could talk about this a little bit. I think would be interesting. Apple just lost a recent case. They're going to have to allow brands within the app store to send users off to other platforms to monetize, which kind of takes that 30% haircut off. So if you're an individual, a solopreneur, or think about tinkering and stuff, it's kind of no better time to jump in now, with your relative ability to acquire users. But at the person level, it's still going to be at the individual employee level, it's still going to be challenging at these companies. But the overall ecosystem, I think, is opening up a bit more based off of some of what's driving the success of these companies.
I heard Fortnite is coming back onto the iOS Play Store. I'm sorry, Play Store, App Store,
Yeah.
which means I think other companies are also going to be coming back on and working more aggressively. So maybe that's another movement that could come. I know Fortnite, while it isn't as big as it used to be,
Yeah.
still has a lot of DAU, a lot of
Oh yeah.
MAU on
Oh
that
yeah.
game to come back to iOS and potentially grab one of the largest platforms. So it's really interesting. I think all the things that are booming right now, Nintendo as well. I think Switch 2 really it's interesting. Like there's a lot happening today that will lead you to think, wow, we're in a good place. Not
Yeah.
necessarily the economy is doomed and tariffs are going to take over and no one's going to spend.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of avenues here, and I love the fact that tech has so much digital currency out there that essentially doesn't worry about tariffs, right? Like if you're going to buy in Fortnite, it doesn't matter. If you're going to
Yeah.
buy AI and Chat GPT tools, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
This is great. I think this is a really cool sort of like shift of the last, I don't know, 2 months.
Yep.
And given all that, tariffs did not weren't into effect for these quarterly earnings. So we'll see
Yeah.
if sentiment changes down the line here. I know, it was a blip in the radar, but once again, always be cautious with these things moving forward.
Oh yeah.
I'm definitely not all bearish or bullish on either side. I'm kind of right down the middle, thinking, hey, maybe we're going to turn a leaf and things will be okay.
Yeah. I think two things to that end to watch out for in the next earnings report, like two specific companies. One, Amazon. I think that the e-commerce piece of the tariffs could have a huge impact. I think they even signaled it maybe in their earnings. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think they're supposed to have maybe like a $900 million impact, which is pretty crazy in terms of the impact on goods that are bought through there. And then with Apple, in terms of like manufacturing, apparently they're trying to move way more of their manufacturing from China to India, and we'll see how quickly they're able to kind of stand up those lines of business and kind of their logistical infrastructure. But I think those would be two things to look out for, like in terms of two companies, to see how they've been able to kind of navigate this time.
And in terms of AI and all these, it seems like, I mean, we're still obviously early in them, but where do you see these companies sort of monetizing AI in a big way? It looks like ads really help them squeeze a little more out of there. At eBay, they also mentioned in their quarterly earnings how AI is really helping speed up a lot of the postings and a lot of the processing that they have. So
Mhm.
I'm sure Amazon is the same with descriptions and other
Yep.
ways getting sellers to sell more essentially using AI. Are there any other things you see helping, sort of revenue numbers and earning numbers moving forward?
I think it's AI efficiency not only in the platforms that people are using, particularly like the ad platforms, but then the efficiency of their, internal workforce as well. Blows. I think a lot of these SaaS companies are in big trouble with these tools that these companies can now kind of spin up internally, where they're not spending, millions, tens of millions of dollars on some of these products and services they were leveraging. So I think you're going to see a lot of kind of operating costs come down across the board with more efficiency, which again, it's great for shareholders, not necessarily as great for maybe some of the people kind of working on these things. The other thing that's really interesting, and this actually dovetails into one of the other stories I wanted to chat about today, which was Meta's Chat GPT competitor called Meta AI. But they have this whole kind of like social discovery piece as well. That kind of allows you to remix content with AI, and I wonder if that's going to be a new engagement platform, similar like a TikTok, where the creation of that content is going to be so unique and interesting that it kind of like drives more engagement. I think that's like another layer. But did you hear about Meta AI and kind of their ChatGPT
Yeah,
competitor?
I heard Zuck talk about it and give sort of a preview. It's pretty cool, and
Yeah.
obviously with the integration of their glasses, I think
Hmm.
that's pretty neat to add that visual element to it eventually, that they can hear and see what you're doing. I saw the demo. I think it was I think there was a Google demo also similar with Gemini
Mm.
with glasses, similar AI where there was the product person with her glasses on scanned the room and then said, "Hey, where did I leave my keys?"
Hmm.
And the glasses responded with, "It's on the shelf next to the pot," or whatever it was.
I need that. I definitely need
It's
that.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I think Meta and Go they're all kind of like working around the same, same problem and the problem set with using the visual and the feedback with the glasses seems to be a form factor that everyone's dialing, not everyone, but at least the big wigs are dialing into. Be
Yeah.
interesting to see how Amazon does it. I think back in the day they had a little tool, remember, like that you could hit easy does it, you could reorder.
Hmm.
I wonder if they're going to have some sort of form factor like glasses or I know they have Echo everywhere, so maybe there's something there that can help see as well. The seeing thing is interesting.
Yeah, I love that AR. The AR piece, we talked, I don't know how many episodes ago it was, but kind of like AR versus VR and where we
Yeah,
saw things going. Obviously, we had like the Vision Pro that came out, and that was, I guess it kind of flopped. I guess that's the other way to kind of describe it, is that flopped. I think it was, while it was good for kind of an early adopter community, not really good for everyday consumers and kind of being able to just the usability. But I think that the glasses, what Meta's working on with the Ray-Bans, and just what you can do within the blending of kind of the physical and digital world is very cool. So maybe that would be the winning form factor. And then if they're able to kind of embed this chat multimodal interface in with the AR, that could be a powerful combination. We'll have to see what they do with that over time, but they have the distribution, they have the hardware, and then they have kind of the LLMs and the models to make a real impact. We'll just see if it gets enough consumer adoption, because I feel like there's a lot of lack of trust with Meta right now. That's if there's anything they're kind of competing against, it's relative lack of trust from consumers.
yeah. There was also I saw an Instagram ad. I'll have to maybe add it to this, where it was basically a Google Translate tool through glasses, where you wear them and it just translates whatever it hears in any language, which I thought when you're traveling could be really interesting, right? Like
Yeah,
I imagine all of the things in your glasses makes total sense. You're walking around, you hear someone talking, it can not only remember it, it can see it, it can tie the things together, and give you context. I think it seems like the glasses thing is really, really something we got to keep an eye on. Essentially,
yeah. I think a lot of stuff around this time is people trying it out and kind of hype. And I feel like, yeah, but I feel like that might not be hype. I feel like actually I see some kind of practical applications and use cases maybe in the shortest term, that could work there. So that's yeah, definitely something to watch. Any other news that you heard that was interesting? I have a one other story that I wanted to chat about, but just
no, I
curious.
think you covered it all. I think Reddit being on there is really interesting. We talked about them early in their IPO, but them
Yeah.
seeing some real power there. But like we've talked about it, community is huge, right? That's what
Yes.
a lot of us are looking for, especially digitally. It makes sense that they're going to figure out and monetize and
Yeah.
see some real advertising dollars coming through.
Also, their SEO game. I mean, if you do any search for anything,
Yeah.
about any product, service, et cetera, you're going to see a Reddit, like a subreddit or some thread, like very early on in that discovery process. If that doesn't change, like that is incredibly powerful. I talk to clients that I work with, and all the time about how do you kind of embed yourself into the customer journey and how people are discovering your product, and that is always a crucial piece, which is like, how are people discovering you in Reddit? How do you show up there
Yeah.
authentically? How do
Yeah.
you engage? And they've done a really good job of creating a community where you get very valuable answers and feedback. And now they're, part of their earnings as well was like all the strides that they're making outside of the US in these international markets and the tremendous DAU growth that's happening there. So it's great to see kind of an IPO come out of Silicon Valley, kind of the near term, that is doing really well, has like true business case and value, and is super accretive, to kind of the entire ecosystem. And I was curious to see how it how it will work, particularly like with their ability to monetize that audience. But it seems like they're firing on all cylinders, which is really
Yeah.
exciting.
I love it. It's awesome. Fellow UVA graduate, Alexis.
Yes,
Let's
yeah.
go.
Shout out.
All right. What was the other one you were referring to?
Yeah. So, TW and I talk about this all the time. I'm like the biggest LinkedIn evangelist and stan ever. For those of you who regularly watch the podcast, it's probably getting a little annoying at this point. But yesterday, LinkedIn shared that they're now going to be sharing ad revenue with creators, with B2B creators. This is a huge deal. This will be the impetus for what's already kind of started, but the creation of like the B2B creator economy, in my view. And I think that, a big thing driving this shift is the focus on video. And I've said a number of times, if you follow me on LinkedIn or you've listened to the podcast, this is the biggest arbitrage opportunity for video content since TikTok 2020, in terms of your ability to drive significant exponential views on content without having to like pay to play for everything. If you look, there were a few posts that were done by LinkedIn CMO recently. I mean, I think they kind of signaled that they're going to be doing more stuff in this space. But if you're not leaning into video and into content creation on there, please, I'm going to keep saying it, but please lean into that. But just to talk more about the program specifically, LinkedIn has this brand link program, which was an initiative they had to connect advertisers with trusted publishers and creators to promote pre-roll video ads alongside high quality, contextually relevant content. So essentially the way it works is like these advertisers can have 3 to 30-second video ads before relevant content to drive people into taking some direct actions. Basically, LinkedIn is partnering with a few creators right now. I think it's like 30, Guy Raz, Stephen Bartlett, but it's also some publishers like Adweek, et cetera. And now people are going to be able to monetize their video content on there. LinkedIn hasn't necessarily been the best platform for kind of monetizing influence. You had to, post there and kind of figure out how to monetize outside of the platform. But now that they're embedding it on top of the platform, huge opportunity for creators, huge opportunity for brands trying to drive discoverability on a platform where there's still a lot of room to grow and where it's not nearly as saturated as other social platforms still, and where people are willing to spend a lot more money because it's more professionally focused. This is like a crazy time to be on and to be on LinkedIn and to be leveraging that platform. So definitely lean in. If you're listening to this, you're thinking about leaning in, now is the time to lean in. All my spidey senses are tingling that this is going to be a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and I like how LinkedIn has such a strong brand and people understand it's about career and being professional, whereas like, TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, people use them for so many different ways, like keeping up with friends or family or coworkers or whatever it is. Like this is clearly starting as your starting base is very clear on what it is. And that's why I think it's going to do really well, because like everyone's mindset will be very equal. And I think the content there will be much more shareable because everyone's sort of in the same mindset. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. So look out for our content.
Yeah, we're going to be trying to post a lot more on LinkedIn. We've already done it through my page, but I think we'll be posting a lot more on our Rush Hour company page, or at least like sharing it from our individual pages.
Yeah.
Quick LinkedIn tip is that most typically get more impressions from your own personal account than company accounts, but you can always reshare or repost company content. But I also want to say, a lot of people don't necessarily know this. You and I know this because we've been in the industry for a long time, but LinkedIn was like literally one of the first social networks that existed. I mean, it existed way before even Facebook. And so it's incredible to see the staying power of this platform. It shows how valuable that kind of professional network social graph is. And we'll see where things go from there.
Lastly, I was going to say, what was the tool? We're going to put some shorts. What was the tool you were showing me earlier that we were going to try to create some shorts and make them easier? We've
Oh yeah,
used Opus, which we like. That was
yes.
really neat. But what was the other one?
It's called Captions. It's an app that you can download. And so let's put you all on some game. If you stayed this long into the pod, we're going to put you on some free game. So TW and I, we do a lot of things, and supporting clients and working on other ventures and other job responsibilities, etc. We somehow find a way to do editing and put this out as well because we love this. This is like a passion project for us, but we definitely use tools to try to make things easier. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll take kind of the raw form content that we have, TW will do some editing there, and then we'll cut up the clips into viral moments. So we use Opus Clip for that. Opus Clip is fire. Opus Clip, if you ever watch this, I would love to do something with you. It's probably my favorite AI product that's out there right now. It saves me so much time. It's an incredible product. And so that helps us to pull the clips. And then now with this Captions app, take the clips, pull it into Captions, and it will provide like kind of flashier editing capabilities. I'll try to do some on this next round of shorts so y'all can see kind of what they look like relative to other content. See if that hits more for you. But Captions, really cool app that we discovered previously. I think a lot of folks, creator economy, have known about it, but it's made our lives a lot easier. So that's been great.
And I was going to mention, we'll also, we were talking about testing thumbnails. We're going to test a little thumbnail coming up here. We've seen some increases in our views, and we thought, hey, let's test standard thumbnail versus celebrity thumbnails. So look out for that. We'll share that data. We might as well. It's where I feel like, especially at the end of these podcasts, if you're listening this far, you should definitely get a little more in terms of learning. So we'll pass that on and share how we're doing. And otherwise, see you next week.
Yeah. Before we go, few key takeaways. Again, if you made it this to the end of the session. Okay, we listened to this conversation. Hopefully it was useful. But what are the takeaways for me as someone who's interested in tech, passive observer, trying to navigate, my career opportunities, et cetera. Job seeker, if you're a job seeker, you got to learn how to position yourself around AI, working on the tooling, workflows. How do you add value, even if you're not technical, leaning into that stuff. For creators, LinkedIn, it's an underpriced opportunity right now. Like lean in there, start thinking about content creation. It's going to be a big arbitrage opportunity there. If you're like a marketing, growth related person, we talked about some of the AI tools, but they're becoming embedded into everything. Don't get caught flat footed with outdated playbooks. Be playing around with these new tools and exploring there. And, if you're a startup founder, APIs, plugins, community integrations, that is the new form of SaaS. So take a look at Reddit's infrastructure angle. Like that's a good example of how it's done. But, I would say those are some of the takeaways. If you're a part of any of those groups and you're looking for somebody to take as an action item right after this, those are the things I would do.
Love it. Until next week. Appreciate your time, Joe.
Yeah, for sure. As always.